I was living in New York at the time. My brother was working for the city of Nashville in recycling, and home for the holidays one time I was being a bit smug and wondering why the recycling and sustainability initiatives in Nashville were still so lackluster. And it was kind of a late night one night, and we just decided that we were just the guys to handle bringing some new stuff to our hometown. I grew up here. And we started looking into different ways we might be able to help. And we ultimately, after a lot of research and decision-making, settled on composting as our best method.
Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the podcast by EO Nashville, where we talk to fellow EO members and discuss all the fun that we have starting, building, growing, scaling, selling businesses, and all that means for our members. I am Eric Jackson, and my co-host, Mr. Robert Hartline, is with me. My partner in crime. Good to be with you as always. And with us today, Mr. Clay Ezell. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
You have a rather unique business in the pantheon of EO Nashville.
It's rather unique in the Southeast, really. What we do in industrial scale composting is a pretty mature industry in a lot of the places you'd expect. The West Coast, the Pacific Northwest, and increasingly so in New England, mostly, and the Europeans are light years ahead of us on this kind of thing. But I say this as a proud Southerner, but we're not always the quickest on the uptake with sustainability or environmental initiatives. So it's a pretty small club in these southeastern states.
Yeah. So what got you into that business?
Felt like we saw a need that needed filling. But originally I was living in New York at the time. My brother was working for the city of Nashville in recycling, and home for the holidays one time I was being a bit smug and wondering why the recycling and sustainability initiatives in Nashville were still so lackluster. Yeah. And it was kind of a late night one night, and we just decided that we were just the guys to handle bringing some new stuff to our hometown. I grew up here, and we started looking into different ways we might be able to help. And we ultimately, after a lot of research and decision-making, settled on composting as our best method.
So who's your customer?
We have actually two very different customer bases. It took me a while to realize it, but we actually run two very different businesses. On one side of the business, we have a service arm where we are going to restaurants, grocery stores, schools, hospitals, pretty much anywhere humans congregate. We generate a lot of waste. And we give them an economical means to divert that away from landfilling as a part of any sustainability goals they might have. In a restaurant setting, especially, it could be 80% of what they're throwing away, or a school cafeteria. I mean, we produce colossal amounts of organic material, primarily food scrap and stuff. So we have those service customers on the one side, and then we have to do something with all of that. Once we've kept it out of the landfill, sort of reason one for being, we then process it into finished compost, which is a soil amendment. So we turn that into potting soil and different garden mixes and things that go out to farmers, gardeners, landscapers. So we kind of have two totally different groups.
Was this your first business, or is this
the first one I've ever owned? Sure.
Right. There's not a blueprint to make a success. I couldn't imagine there's a blueprint that makes that successful. Like, you had to start it, figure it out.
Pretty much. Once we had elected to do this, I was working in book publishing in New York, decided to leave that job and went and trained with a group that was doing, it was called the Local Organics Recovery Project. And homeowners would bring us their stuff to the farmers market, and we would take it to a little facility and compost it. And so I sort of figured out how to do that at a fairly small scale, and then had to pretty much learn everything from there, and bang our heads on a lot of different low-hanging girders, made a lot of mistakes, and but as we've scaled, we're continually evolving.
And this change from book publishing, what was that like? What?
Abrupt, total. It was. I loved being in that industry when I was there, but when I fell out of love with it, it was time to go, and I was ready to do something radically different. And my brother and I really wanted to do something together primarily, but we wanted to do something that gave us a good feeling when we got out of bed every morning. Didn't want to just push numbers around on a screen, or we wanted to have an impact. That was the bottom line.
It sounds like there's more meaning behind it too.
Definitely.
Where did that come from?
We were children of the 80s, when like some of those first recycling efforts were starting to come to fruition, Tweety Bird, Wooduse, We Use, We Cycle.
Yep.
We were the kids bugging our parents about doing it. And there was almost no infrastructure here at that time. You had to, a lot of homeowners still have to take it somewhere to get it done. And it just always stuck. And then I think living in a city, for me at least, where it was going on, where those kinds of practices were just sort of de rigueur, you had to do it. It really cemented the fact that it was not a horrible lifestyle change. It did not require that much effort. It was one of those things that once you get used to doing it, it's awfully easy.
Right.
And then once you look at the numbers of the amount of waste that we create, this species of ours, it's staggering.
Yeah. The plastic drives me insane. Just because it's so easy to have, like I carry a glass bottle everywhere. I have filtered water at home. There's aluminum cans that you can use that are so easy to recycle. And maybe you probably know the answer to this, but what happens to plastic that we use?
A great deal of it ends up in the ocean. It's a lot of people have come around to the idea, the wrong idea, that it all just goes in the trash anyway, so why bother?
Right.
It's really not true. There are a lot of companies, large and small, municipalities, large and small, that are doing the right thing. The issue with plastic primarily is most of that infrastructure exists overseas. So that plastic bottle is probably traveling something like 10,000 miles to get recycled, if it gets recycled. And it degrades over time. There's only so many times you can recycle a plastic bottle.
Right.
What was a bottle becomes one of those flimsy little forks, and then it's trash because you just can't keep doing it. An aluminum can you can recycle as many times as you want, ad infinitum. Our particular niche is food scrap and green waste, the things that tree trimmers and landscapers are producing scads of in this state. And that we take that out of where it would go, the landfill, turn it into a beneficial soil amendment,
right,
to grow more food, more trees, more things. And so it feels like a really good regenerative cycle. Yeah.
So what are the downsides of food scraps ending up in a landfill?
Methane production primarily. Okay. It's that it doesn't break down right in that environment. A lot of people,
it's covered up.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an aerobic environment instead of an anaerobic environment instead of aerobic, where it can breathe.
Right.
Apple falls off a tree. Nature has a perfect record, batting 1,000 for millennia on returning that apple to the soil in one way or another beneficially. If you take 10 million apple cores and you bury them in a landfill, they don't break down correctly, and they produce huge amounts of methane, which is a lot more potent than CO2. It doesn't get as much pub,
right?
But it's a real problem. Landfills are one of the biggest generators of methane on the planet. Part of the reason they smell awful, but part of the reason we need to handle them differently.
So how is it working with your brother?
It's been good.
Yeah. That's for a lot of people. That's working with family is a different animal, right?
It can be challenging. Fortunately, we complement each other. One of us got one half of the brain, the other one got the other. I forgot whether it's left or right, which one I have, but we do get along very well, and our skill sets kind of mesh together, sort of yin and yang.
How do you separate duties? What does that look like?
We don't do it very well. We still bleed into each other's court a little too often, but we're trying. We right now, as we've sort of started looking at these two businesses for the first time as separate entities, not legally, but he's really handling sort of the big outbound product stuff, and I'm handling making sure all the pieces fit together.
Yeah.
So I guess you'd call me sort of the integrator of the group, and he's more on getting that compost that we make out into the world.
Right.
At what point during the evolution of your business did you get introduced to EO, and what was appealing to you about that?
Oh, I think it was 2019. We'd been in business together since 2015. We and I heard about the Catalyst program, which was the first time I'd ever really heard of EO. I was familiar with organizations like it, like I'd heard of YPO, EO, things like that, but never really looked at them much. But going through the Catalyst program really opened my eyes to what that could be. And we had some years under our belt. We were still stubbing our toes on everything we could stub them on. And I knew we needed some guidance. But it was sort of that whole, known unknowns kind of thing, or unknown unknowns. I didn't really know well exactly what we needed and how to grow. But I knew I could use some help. So I went and took the Catalyst course. And then
what was the biggest takeaway that the business you got out of the business from that experience with Catalyst?
The need for organization, the inability of any one person to do everything and be in all the places at one time. And that's a lesson I'm still trying to internalize as well as I should.
Yeah. What does that look like?
But the first thing we did, I think we were a company of 3 at the time, and it really showed the importance of getting some other people in the door to handle some of those things so that I could look at the whole organization and not just that one thing that was right in front of me. I think I was going to my Catalyst classes having just gotten out of our first route truck, going around to collect the stuff, and was, showering under the hose out on our site real quick and running around with a change of clothes in my car all the time so that I could do the work, then be presentable to sell it, and flip flop. It was a little exhausting. So it was good reason.
How did that transition feel to you?
Probably a common response, but it was a little scary at first. Those first few people you entrust to handle a thing for you that you've held on to very tightly for a while. And the first time we got that hire really right is when it felt great, because we didn't get it right the first couple of times.
Yeah.
And we continue sometimes making, hiring decisions that aren't amazing. But man, when you get that decision right and that person starts to blossom, that feels fantastic. And it feels like an extra sail on the boat.
Yeah.
What's been the most important decision you've had to make in the business or personally?
The recent decision to start looking at the businesses as separate entities, I think was huge. And that's
taking product in and then selling it.
Well, it's because we looked at the whole thing, our service arm and our production in the middle and the product sales as one big thing. And running a hauling business really, is kind of its own deal. We've got drivers that specialize in that. We've got manager that's running that show. And then we drop off the stuff that we've collected at our facility. And that's where the service arm kind of ends. And then production takes over and makes a great product out of it and then tries to sell it. And so it dawned on us fairly recently. I think it was last summer when we were going through some financial difficulties that, like, wait a minute, I feel like these two things operate so differently. We should probably pull them apart a little bit, and examine them for their own merits, because we work with other companies that do nothing but haul waste around. So I was like, okay, let's check that out for a little bit. And the results have been kind of staggering. They were a bit like I predicted they would be. And anyway, it's been very enlightening.
Yeah, I can imagine running a transportation company essentially and a product company. Is there overlap between the two? I mean, obviously you're using the product that you take in to make the product, but are there any other overlaps there that?
There are. I mean, we can achieve some efficiencies. Say, one truck is going to drop a dumpster off at one place and it happens to be right next to one of our soil users. We could drop them some on the ground and then plop the bin over there, go pick up another one and come back. And so we haven't separated them completely, but it is important that we make sure that both of them stand up on their own two legs. But it feels good when there's some sort of synergy there.
So if the restaurant's getting rid of their waste with you, are they paying you to collect it? Or
they are.
Oh wow, that's cool.
It's a service they would otherwise be paying Waste Management to take it away, or Republic Services, or another traditional trash company. And we operate a lot like they do, with the big difference being what we take and what we do with it once we've got it. So we want to mirror the experience that they're used to, but also give them
but it's a different
way to market
container?
about.
It's a different container.
It is, but for say a custodian, they're going out with one bag that goes in this bin and one that goes in this bin. The value proposition is that somebody, say Whole Foods grocery store is an important customer of ours. They divert an incredible amount of stuff, and it's baked into their DNA. They want to do that kind of thing. Turnip truck is a similar kind of entity. They went from a gigantic waste dumpster that was all going straight to the landfill. They got to shrink that container, get it picked up less frequently, and then have us come in a little bit more often. And the idea is that we carve a nice big hole out of their waste bill and fit right in there. Yeah. We don't want to penalize anybody for doing the right thing.
Those waste companies they are some criminal enterprises.
Literally.
No, I mean, for real. Like when I had retail stores, the shenanigans they would do on our bills were wild.
We want people to have a much better opinion of how this could go. And we have to do that because we're small. Yeah. I think a lot of those larger companies will, have engaged in that kind of behavior because they're like, look, what choice do you have?
Yeah.
It's us or them, and they behave the same way. And, they kind of understand that you have to use them. And we know well and good that you don't have to use us. So that's one of the messages we preach constantly to our staff is we have to provide them a better experience, or we're the first service to go. None of our customers are required to do this.
What's changed in your leadership style after being an EO?
Comfort with making decisions. That was one that, just being around people who are doing it often, and you get a lot, out of, it's not really like osmosis but you are having these conversations quite frequently. And so that's really helped. And in our early days, partially because, we were all just doing everything all the time. It didn't feel like, the buck stopped here in any way, because it was, we were a very small team. So, as we've grown a little bit, it's helped me understand the importance of what targets I need to be looking at, and what I need to be delegating. And I'm by no means perfect on that regard. I'm still constantly picking up things that either nobody else wants to do but has to get done, or those things. And I don't know, that's a nice growth area for me.
Yeah. Has there been a decision that your form has helped you navigate?
Yes. And gratefully, at one time, I was very hot to pick up our operation and plop it in another city. And they helped me talk through, where we were and what our capabilities were. And I think I knew deep down that I was not really ready for that. And that's where maybe some of the anxiety was coming from. But they helped me pinpoint a few of those things and then decide exactly what we were going to work on to get to the point where we were ready where we had our model that we could recreate somewhere else. And so
So is that the
Hopefully
vision
that's
to be able
coming
to
soon.
do? Is that a vision to do multiple sites or?
It is. It's as the old salty trash guys kind of say, like, cigar. It's a local business, kid. Like, you can't. It doesn't make sense for me to transport material from Louisville down here or Birmingham up. You got to the kitchen's got to be pretty close to the dining room, so to speak. And so it would make sense to do it elsewhere. And so many of our communities in the Southeast need this because they're 100% reliant on landfilling waste, and we can take a huge bite out of what's getting thrown away every day.
Yeah, hey, help me overcome this. I saw the 60 Minutes episode where they were taking plastics, loading it on a barge, and they take it to China to be recycled, but the recycling is throwing it back in the ocean.
Portions of it, you've got bad actors everywhere.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, there was a big, there was kind of a turning point in the recycling industry. That was the idea: was ship it overseas, they'll deal with it, and it'll come back to us in the form of new materials, not virgin plastic, but recycled plastic that then the bottlers could make their Coke bottles out of. The reason we were able to do that is because so many container ships were coming over to the U.S. and going back half full, maybe almost empty. There's a really interesting story. The first female Chinese billionaire was the one who figured out that China was desperately needed paper for their industries because they'd more or less denuded all of China and couldn't make paper. So she was sending American recycled cardboard stuff to pulp mills in China and recycling, and she wasn't paying anything to get it there. And it was genius. Then plastic followed suit and all of our other recyclables. The big problem there was we weren't building enough recycling infrastructure here. And so China then was on this rapid ascent economically over the last 35 years or however long. They were producing enough of their own waste streams to satisfy their plastic facilities, their aluminum facilities, their paper mills, and they closed the door and said, we don't want it anymore. So everybody started, let's send it to Vietnam. Okay, how about Indonesia? And that's where we really got into some big problems because they were full. So take it out in the ocean.
Wow.
Problem solved. But, we used to do that.
Yes,
as a burgeoning country, it's nothing new. Throw it in the water.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Fortunately, what we do is hyper local. It would be bad in a lot of ways to try to send a bunch of food scrap overseas to be done. By the time it got there, holy hell!
Yeah, methane again, right?
It would actually probably start to transform on the way, but just it would be an awful mess. But our scope is really tight. Most of what we pick up, comes here. It goes 30 miles to Ashland City, and then it's reused again in Middle Tennessee for the most part.
Is that where your facility is to process?
Ashland City, USA.
Yeah. How did you pick Ashland City?
It was a zoning issue. The only county in Middle Tennessee, pretty much, certainly the only one bordering Davidson, they all considered composting an industrial process. And so immediately our land cost would have been 10 times more than it was. So Cheatham County, thank you, Cheatham County, understood, and I think correctly, that this is an agricultural process. We're not making industrial fertilizers or anything like that. So they allowed us to do it out there, and that is why the Compost Company is in Ashland City.
So back to EO and your experience, what would you say to someone new in the EO? How could they benefit more from the experience of joining EO? And
drink it in. My probably first couple of years, I was really sort of like, okay, forum, and then I don't have time for any of this other stuff, and I'm still trying to make more time for some of the broader events. I'm not the best attendee. Matt Charette gets me every time I see him. Where have you been? but I mean, there's so many resources there. It's incredible. I mean, I firmly believe it all starts in your forum group. And I'm very close with mine. I value their input greatly. But I think, there is a lot of extra out there that can be taken advantage of. So get right in there.
Get right in there.
Is there any favorite event that you've attended where you picked up on something that really changed your outlook or your process? Or
most of the ones I've done, have been the fun ones, the movable feast or the holiday party. But one that really helped kind of change my thinking was an author event that was at the Listening Room by Peter. He's the economist. That one really kind of cracked my head open about just thinking about how the world works.
Yeah,
and all the forces. And
what is his last name?
Blanking on his name. I'm embarrassed.
Peter Zion. Yeah,
that was great.
It really was.
And so that was one. That was the one where I'd finally. I need to go to more events. And I went to that one, and it was the one that said, okay, I need to do more of this. These are great learning opportunities.
Yeah. That's been my attitude all along. It's like, if I can get one small thing out of this, or it changes my perspective in some way, then it was worth it. Mm-hmm. So I've just liberally gone to things as much as I possibly can, that you never know. And you meet people there, right?
Definitely.
I mean, you meet your fellow EO members, and those turn into relationships, and that's how things get done in the world, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Clay, thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Yes. So if you are an entrepreneur in Nashville, Tennessee, and you're looking to connect with others, you can visit eonashville.com and learn how over 320 of us gather in a forum every month and talk about changes in life and business and important decisions we all need to make. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.